Hello everyone. In this session, we are going to discuss about one of the 9 political thinkers that is mentioned in your Unit 1. And the thinker is Thomas Hobbes. Before starting, let's imagine a situation. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up and see that there is no law, there is no central authority, there is no police, what will be your reaction? Do you think that all the people will come together collectively with harmony and live in the society? Or it will be a situation of total chaos where everyone will only work towards their self interest? The answer to this question was given by Thomas Hobbes in his theory Social Contract. Let's move to the introduction of the Thomas Hobbes. He was born in 1588 in the England, and he was one of the first who have given the social contract theory. There are other thinkers also that has given the social contract theory. The other thinkers are Rousseau and John Locke. But in the social contract of theory, he actually rejected the divine origin of the state. That is, the state is something which is God gifted, or the king is sent by the God to govern the subjects. Thomas Hobbes totally rejected this idea. Instead, that he said that the origin of the state is man-made in nature. The origin of the state is because of the reasons humans are involved. Next, Hobbes actually advocated for absolutism. He talks about that there will be a supreme authority and that will be state, and no other authority will be above that state. His political philosophy is based on natural science because Thomas Hobbes has not only studied political science but he has also studied various different subjects. For example, he have also studied psychology. He have also studied the universal principle, and the universal principle which he have studied, he actually apply them to this theory. Karl Marx has acknowledged him as father of all of us. So this kind of statement can be asked in your question. For example, one of the statement can be the social contract theory was given by Thomas Hobbes. The second question can be Karl Marx acknowledged him as father of all of us. So both the statement are the correct. So you have to keep a check on this statement also. Then he was a materialistic thinker who have used the empirical approach. So, what is the meaning of the empirical approach? Empirical approach means any approach that studied is based on facts and observation. So, Hobbes also has given this theory on the basis of whatever he have observed in his surrounding. And later, he was also recruited to an aristocratic family as a tutor. Now, whenever we study a thinker, you have to remember that the kind of circumstances in which he's been and brought up directly influence the theory which he have given. For example, let's move on to the impact of the English Civil War. We know that Thomas Hobbes was born in England, and during that time, English Civil War was going on between England, Scotland, and Ireland. This turmoil was between two groups, the one who supported the parliamentary group and the second one who supported the royalist. Thomas Hobbes was in the second category, that is, he supported the crown rule. He wanted the royalists to rule. Then the end of this controversy or turmoil was Charles I, the king of the England, was executed. And this whole situation actually has led to the creation of a very pessimistic view of human nature. Here, the pessimistic view means very negative perspective of human nature. Because of this kind of situation, he have developed that human nature is very selfish, very brutish, and only works for their own interest. Also, some of his personal condition that have influenced him. For example, his father also abandoned him and his mother at the start of his career. Let's move on to some important books that can be asked in your examination. You have to remember the chronology of the books plus the name. For example, 1642, the first book that he have written is De Civi. De Civi is a Latin term which means on the citizen. Then 1651, the most important book that you have to remember is Leviathan. This book is actually divided into 4 parts. So major part of his theories actually consisted in this one book. Then 1655, he actually written De Corpore. That is meaning of on the body. Again, one book is De Homine 58, and in 1681 there is Behemoth, that is all the causes due to which civil war existed in England. He have written on that topic. You have to remember these books. Now let's start with the actual political thought of Thomas Hobbes. These are the three parts in which we will go on in our lecture. First, we'll discuss about human nature, what kind of nature Thomas Hobbes has described. Second, the state of nature. What is state of nature? What were the features of state of nature? And third is the social contract theory. First, human nature. So earlier we have talked about how Thomas Hobbes' surrounding situation actually created such things by which he actually concluded that human nature is very pessimistic in nature. And he have also given a statement that life of a man is continuous search for power after power, which ceases only after his death. Means he says about that human is so power hungry that it only ends when the human end itself. So the pessimistic view of human nature is that human being is very selfish, isolated, egoistic, and power seeking in nature. This power seeking is a derivative of utilitarian nature of the man. Means utilitarian nature means when a man is always trying to maximize his pleasure and minimize the pain or the suffering. In the beginning, I have told you that he have actually studied natural sciences and applied that principle. So that principle is the matter. We already know the basics, like there are three types of matter. Each matter, there are many particles, and they vibrate on their position, like to and fro movement is there. He have actually compared the human beings to that particle. Human beings also do to and fro motion. This is also known as the mechanistic view of the human nature. He have described two kind of motion. First motion is vital motion, which involves digestion, breathing. Vital motions means which do not require our interference, means that are automatic in nature. We don't have to do anything by ourselves. Then voluntary motion is the deliberative action that we take. For example, right now I am speaking, you're walking, these all the actions come under voluntary action. Voluntary action is again divided further into two classes. First is appetite and aversion. So that human, the particle that he talked about, that particle always moves towards something which he likes, the things that give him pleasure, and he always move away from something which gives him pain or which he don't like. So the motion towards something which he loves is appetite, and moving away from something which he fear is aversion. So there are two kind of motion, appetite and aversion. Therefore, human beings are nothing but the bundles of appetite and aversion. This is the statement of the Thomas Hobbes. Now, he has also explained a term that is felicity. Felicity means seeking pleasure, avoiding pain, and this is the final desire of that human being. So, Thomas Hobbes talks about that the only desire a human have is to seek pleasure and to totally avoid the pain in any circumstances. The term you have to remember, it is felicity. It can be asked in the question, and the question are also asked on this. Then he is also a key advocate of psychological hedonism. Hedonism means where the basic agenda or basic goal of a human life is just to gain pleasure, and nothing else is the goal of a human being. That is hedonism. So he is actually the advocate of the principle of hedonism. Next, he talks about self preservation as the primary desire. So, what is self preservation? Self preservation means to save oneself, to save one life. So, he says that human being always is power hungry, but the only thing that is his primary desire above that is to save him or herself. That is right of self preservation. Then he actually distinguished human beings and animals. He said that humans are actually distinguished by reason. Reason means common sense. Reason means the ability to say what is right and what is wrong. But he says that this reason is not absolute. This reason has certain restriction that comes with it. For example, there is no complete knowledge in any human being from which he can decide what is right and what is wrong. That's why he says that there is a need of an arbiter to dissolve the disputes. Since he has said that humans have reason, but that reason is not complete, it is not absolute, so we need a central authority which would solve the disputes between two humans. Okay, and that arbiter is our state, our commonwealth. We'll study in the upcoming slides. So we have talked about the human nature. Next portion is the state of nature. State of nature was a kind of situation where there was no law, no political authority, no civil law. It was pre-social and pre-political. It was characterized by perpetual struggle, means everlasting struggle and conflict and total warfare. Because here everybody is free to do whatever they want, there was a state of constant fear. For example, men were take whatever, men were free to rob, men were free to kill anybody. So human was in fear that before somebody kill me, I should kill them. So in such a way, lot of chaos and warfare was going on. There was no security at all. He talks about how the state of nature was absolute anarchy due to the absence of the law. And the statement here is very important. Every man was enemy to every man. Okay, so everyone was enemy to one another. There was no sense of harmony between them. But he says that right of self preservation was still there because they have to protect themselves. This was the problem that Thomas Hobbes pointed out, and he has also given the solution to it. He said that we should totally abandon the state of nature and we should establish a state or a society. And how do we establish a state or society? He says that each of the human should come together to form a social contract. We already know contract means it is a kind of agreement between two or more persons who come at a common conclusion. So here the parties to the contract are humans ourselves. Okay, so they come together and they come together and form a contract with each other, and they form a leviathan or a state or a commonwealth. So there are various names to describe that central authority. It can be either sovereign, it can be a state, it can be commonwealth, or it can be a leviathan. Okay, and he said that in this contract what will be done, all these rights which we are getting in the state of the nature, which was the result of all the chaos and war, we will transfer all these rights to a leviathan. Transferring the right to the leviathan, what happens? We are only left with one right, that is right of self preservation. Thomas Hobbes talks about the right of self preservation to be the only natural right and important right, and this will keep to ourselves, but all the other rights we will surrender it to the our commonwealth or state. So here it is written, the state and the society are created together through a social contract. Transfer of all their rights while enjoying in the state of the nature, they have transferred it to a third party, that is the state or the commonwealth. But one thing you have to remember here, that sovereign or commonwealth is not a party to the contract. Party in the contract is just us, just the individual ourselves that have formed this contract with one another. Why he have done such kind of contract? Because he always preferred security above liberty. Because of the certain situation which he's been through, he always have preference that security should come over all kinds of liberty. So while making this contract, he stated that I authorize and give up all my rights governing myself to this man. So all of them have come together with their consent. Nobody have forced them to come in this contract. They have by themselves given all their rights to the Leviathan. Now this Leviathan or sovereign or commonwealth, in the terms of Thomas Hobbes, he sees that the preference of a sovereign must be a monarch. He prefers that all the power should be constituted, or it should be centralized in one person rather than in a group of people. And these powers are totally undivided, unlimited, inalienable, and permanent. Undivided means For example, in today's situation, we are seeing that the power is decentralized between three levels of the government, that is, the central level, state level, and the local levels. But here, the powers should not be divided between any other levels, and this power should be concentrated in one person, that is the monarch, that is the sovereign. It is unlimited, means there is no restriction to it. It is inalienable, means it cannot be separated from the sovereign itself, and it is permanent in nature. The contract itself is also permanent in nature. Okay. He develops an idea of an absolute sovereign. All the features we have discussed, that is undivided, unlimited, inalienable, and permanent. Other features are that sovereign is a result of the contract, not the party to the contract. This here statement is asked many times in the examination, that whether the sovereign is a party to the contract or it is the result to the contract. So you have to remember it is the result to the contract. There is no right of revolution against the sovereign, means nobody can go against the sovereign or commonwealth, because you have already surrendered all your rights to the sovereign. Now that contract is perpetual and it is irreversible, it cannot be revoked. That contract is mutually constructed by the people, is the very reason it is permanent in nature. Okay, so it is constructed by public itself, so you cannot take it back from the Leviathan. Now, all the individual in the society were the subjects of the sovereign, and he has no obligation to the subject. Since that sovereign is not the party to the contract, he have no kind of obligation towards the subject or towards the people. He absolutely enjoy all kinds of power without any restriction. So this unlimited political obligation towards the absolute sovereign is done by only individuals. Means the people who have given all their rights, they have to do political obligation. Yeah, they have to oblige to each and every statement or laws that is made by the king or the monarch. And this surrender cannot be revoked, means this contract can be revoked. We have studied that. The only condition where he have given some power to the public, that is the right of self preservation, because Thomas Hobbes only considers right of self preservation to be a natural right. He says that there is unlimited power to the sovereign, and it does not grant a right to dissent or rebel. Means you then too don't have a right to dissent or rebel, but only one condition you can revolt, that is, if the sovereign is not able to protect the life. If the individual has to defend himself from the sovereign or from any other actors, then he can revolt it, or then he can challenge the authority of the sovereign. Understood? So this all this situation have actually led to the completion of the social contract theory. Let's revise this one more time. Thomas Hobbes contract theory. First of all, he has identified a problem. That problem was state of nature. State of nature, what kind of situation was there? There was no law, there was no central authority, there was no one to solve the disputes between the public. Okay, and in that kind of situation, it was total chaos, means everybody was the enemy to every man. And the solution which Thomas Hobbes has described is Leviathan or social contract, means all of us should come together and should surrender our rights to the sovereign, except our right of self preservation. Here, he always believed that the sovereign or the Leviathan should be a monarch rather than it being an assembly of the people. Okay. In this way, we have completed Thomas Hobbes. Let's move on to some of the PYQs that has been asked from this topic. First, before that, let's see some quotes that is given by Thomas Hobbes. So, first quote is, "Fear and I were born twins." Their statement can be directly asked in your question. So, you have to read one time what are the quotes that are given by the thinker or the scholar. Let's move to the previous year questions. First is, in the writing of Thomas Hobbes, sovereignty was used to, means what was the meaning of sovereignty according to Thomas Hobbes? First, to constitute socialism has oppositional force within the capitalist society. No, we have not studied about any differentiation between that. Second, to justify the monarchical absolutism, kind of, right? Because he have justified the absolute powers that he have given to a Leviathan by his principle of political obligation. But if even if you get the answer, you should read all of the options. Okay, so C is to differentiate between the occupational groups. So this is not the right answer. To demarcate international boundaries between enemy nations, this is also not given by Thomas Hobbes. Okay, next question. It is also asked in 2026. This is an assertion reason type question. First statement is, Hobbes thought that the monarchy was preferable to aristocracy and democracy. Is it? He has actually preferred it that way, right? He has preferred that all the power should be invested in one person, and that is monarchy, because monarchy means rule of one. The reason here mentioned is, Hobbes argued that the self indulgence of one in comparison to that of many would be cheaper. He says that the inherent nature of a human being is to fulfill their self interest. So, why not we just select one person, because we have to fulfill their self interest at our cost? So, he says that to fulfill the self interest of one is actually easier and cheaper, if rather than if we have to complete or fulfill the self interest of many, like an assembly of men. That's why he preferred monarchy. So here the assertion is also right, the reason is also right, and the reason is the correct explanation to the assertion. All right, let's move on to the next question. Who among the following political thinkers considers the state of nature as a war of every man against every man? So this statement also we have studied. This statement he have given in the state of the nature. In the state of the nature, he talks about that there was no law, there was no central authority, so everyone was the enemy of everyone. Everyone was trying to just fulfill their self-interest. So the correct answer will be Thomas Hobbes. Let's move on to the next question. It is of 2023. Thomas Hobbes defined sovereignty as. Similar question is repeated, only the language of the question is a bit changed. Let's read all the options. First is the power of the people to question the king. Let's read all the options. B, the right of the citizen to elect the government. C, the monopoly of corrosive power of singular rule or ruler. And D, the duty of the ruler to serve people. So the correct answer will be option number C. He have defined sovereignty has the monopoly, means there should be no other body above that singular ruler or monarch, and his powers would be absolute in nature. Let's move on to the last question. It is, Leviathan was written by. So we have also studied that the Leviathan was written by A, John Locke, B, Thomas Hobbes, C, J.S. Mill, D, Rousseau. So the correct answer will be Thomas Hobbes. Okay, and what are the other books that were written? You have also have to also remember that the 3 Latin books plus Leviathan, and one book he has written on the causes of the English Civil War, that is Behemoth. Okay. So these were the PYQ that were asked based on the base of Thomas Hobbes, and I hope you like this session. Thank you very much.